Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a new conversation. Last time we had a good talk. It went all over the place, and we got to get introduced to Jason Taylor and his life and how he got to where he's at right now. But we're going to pick it up from there. We talked about going into deeper subjects, and I have a subject that I want to talk to you about. And it's based on the fact that you've been pastoring 12, 13, 14, 15 years.
15, yeah.
And I think about, when you're preparing your messages, are you aware that different people are coming into the kingdom of God at different stages in their life? And they're coming every Sunday because they want to hear about God. They want to learn about God's word.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take into account that there's so many different people at so many different levels and adjust your message for that purpose?
Well, I had a Ken Graves tell me one time several years ago. He said, all you got to remember is the 3 M's. Always remember, whether you're preaching, sharing your testimony, talking to somebody on the street, 3 M's. Milk, meat, and manna. Milk's easy. Everybody enjoys it. Always share some milk. Meat takes a little chewing, a little seasoning, a little marinating. Cook it right. It's good. And the manna, it comes from God. You don't get no credit. You just glorify him with it. And so every time I do a message, I pray and seek milk, meat, and manna.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you get manna, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're the only person. There's been times when I'm the only one that went, oh, wow. And I'd be on the ride home with Christy and be like, I never even thought about it. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Has this ever happened to you where you're in the middle of a message and you feel, whoa, something's going on? He's actually instructing me right now as I'm talking. Yeah. I am getting revelation from God. I've never been here before, but people don't realize that.
No, but I think out loud. And so I've said in messages, wait a minute, I'm so jacked up right now because I'm not even thinking. This is not even where I was supposed to be. Y'all just, and I've even just stopped and prayed. Lord, I'm afraid you're trying to get me to do something, and I'm not following you, and I'm really want to be obedient. Just because I can get just like, what is it? But it has. It's sometimes it happens and it's like, boom, look at that. Wait a minute, look at this. Have you ever seen this right here from this angle? Yeah. And look at this. And then it's like, it's wonderful.
That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah. I have stopped and just said, I don't know. I'm missing him. I can't, he's guiding me he's, and I'm not getting it. And don't know whether I was fighting him to stay on what I thought I was supposed to do or. But.
So in that situation, are you comfortable enough with the body there to just be honest with them and say, hey,
yeah.
Have you ever gotten to the place where
I've quit preaching?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. But you know what? They're just doing a closing prayer because I'm done. I can't even, I don't have no idea what to say now. Let's just pray. And ironically, people be like, I was so blessed by that.
Really?
Like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much people are hungry for just genuine, just genuine, just
be real.
Yeah. They're so hungry for that. And it's so refreshing.
Can I talk to you a little bit about, you and I talk, and I'm involved in ministry, but completely different. And so we talked, and I share with you some of the things that I go through, some of the struggles I go through, some of the thinking that I'm mulling over and meditating, and I kind of bounce it off of you. And I was mentioning earlier that last night as I was going to sleep, and this is a rough subject, and I don't mean it to, some of my favorite ministers, strong men of God, are cowboy preachers. And the reason is because, like we talked about, they're real. They're not phony. I told you, hey, I need you to come in so we can record this thing. And so I told you that, okay, I had to find a shirt to wear for this thing. And you laugh because like, I would never even think about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And that's one of the things that kind of like sets you apart, because you don't have this awareness of pretension.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but most of the people where I'm from, we don't have a, like how it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Like a wardrobe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like
I mean,
okay, it has to follow this.
I know that there are people in the cowboy culture that think you're supposed to wear the hat like this and the wild rag.
Very fashionable.
And that's just not us. I mean, I mean, we're just, right. I mean, most of my circle or where I'm from, how I was raised, it always has to have a purpose. It ain't, appearance don't matter. Of course, there ain't a whole lot of us got much of an appearance anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, see, you approach ministry a little bit differently than a lot of people, because you didn't choose this as a career.
Right.
You didn't, like, okay, graduate from school and then go, okay, I'm going to go to seminary and I'm going to get trained, and then I'm going to get a certificate, an ordination papers, and have that degree of theology on your wall. That wasn't anything.
No.
And so really who I am thinking about when I'm going to say what I'm going to say is not that type of individual. I respect that kind of individual, but I see a lot of train wrecks from people that I work with, and where they have been abused or misused, or they're wandering. They're Christians that are just wandering. They don't have a place to go. And so I spend a lot of time. And so last night I was thinking about that, and I thought, I've always kind of kidded around and said that I'm more of a sheepdog than I am a shepherd. And it's because I'm always going after people who are astray. They've been kind of forgotten, and I'm always pursuing them. And so last night I was going to sleep. I was writing some stuff, I was mulling over. I was writing. I was thinking, it's important that people like you have people like me in the congregation, and that you spend enough time with them so that they have the tools and the wherewithal to go and do that, because they're probably energized. They're probably thinking, what can I do?
Oh, yeah.
How can I help somebody?
Yeah.
Do you ever work with people or encourage men there in the body to go and do that? And even if they're not qualified, just...
I find them. I mean, I think it's... In fact, our elders, we there's 4 elders, active elders, but we don't do away with our elders. They rotate every 3 years, they're in a cycle, but they go to inactive, but they're still an elder. So I still call on them and say, hey, I got a such and such. Their grandkid just died. I need you to really stay in touch with them for a while. I such and such is really messing up again, and I'm going to choke him if I go see him. So reach out to him, or whatever, because it's just...
That's interesting.
I mean, I think you got to use every resource that is available to you. And if you don't use the resources, God will send them somewhere else to get used. And I ain't saying we use them all. We miss a lot of stuff. I miss stuff every day. But man, I don't want God to have to find somewhere else for a good hand to go to work when there's plenty of work to be done at our camp. I mean, I put them to work. I'd be like, you need to, in fact, I had a conversation with an active elder last night. About a month ago, I took 2 weeks off because I was really frustrated. And he asked me, am I doing what needs to be done as an elder? How am I doing? And I said, you're fine. He said, am I helping you enough? I said, that's the only thing we got to work on. He's like, what do you mean? I said, as elders, we're overseers of the sheep. You don't need to worry about me. But 2 weeks ago, a month ago, when I was pretty in the grip, and somebody should have come to me and said, hey, before you rip off a sheep's head,
right,
why don't you think about taking a break? Because I needed some distance to resolve some stuff. And he was, he's like, we knew you did, and we're glad you did take a break. But I said, always our responsibility is to put the care of the sheep in front of each other. And however that needs to look.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, that's so...
And I like
it unloads me. I don't have to worry about them all, because I got 6 or 8 elders that are within that church body that are always watching for the sheep, taking care of them and watching out, and they know they don't need to get my approval. We're all just serving the shepherd. You know.
Yeah, I like the what you said about, you know, the way that the organization is set up is they rotate in, rotate out. But I like the fact that you still see them, you recognize them as elders.
Yes. See, I think that's been a mistake that we've made as an organization. Well, I mean, first the elders were like told, don't be too much in the front, you know, don't, because we didn't want to be an elder ruled, you know, dominated. Six guys got the influence and make the decisions. The body needs to be at work. So we've adjusted a little here and there. I think right now, if a church body would acclimate to active and inactive, it's just like the military. If we go to war, everybody's active.
Yeah.
There's one call made, and everybody, in our church, you better be ready.
Right.
Because, I mean, it can happen at any moment, whether it's, you know, I go down.
So these men,
Different things.
these men, they accept the responsibility that they're supposed to look out and watch and see how people are doing.
And they also accept that don't go away. You know,
That's good.
So, you know, if God don't revoke a call, why would we?
That's true.
And if we call a man to serve in that capacity, you better know that that don't get taken off.
Yeah, it's a gifted call of God or without repentance. It means he don't take it back. If he puts that gift on your life, it's like a lifelong function in the body.
Yep. And so we don't, you know, an elder that say our elder like Stacy Wiley, he's rotated out. He's not an active elder at Bar None, but he serves on the FCC board. He is overseer of the cabin, the Lion Shack Ministries. Him and Miss Wiley, you know, they're coordinating, handling all that. Mr. Bobby Whitehead has rotated off. He's an inactive elder, but he works at the funeral home, so he's very hands-on with every family. And anytime I'm overwhelmed with funerals, I don't call him, he calls me and says, hey, I know you're wore out. Let me help you. I'll go to that visitation. You don't go. I mean, you can't even put a price on that. You know, this is a guy that knows his role. And even though he's inactive, he's working and he's in the community and he's aware of where his service can be best utilized. And so an elder don't have to be sent. They're going. They're just saying, hey, the Lord's leaning, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so in your sheepdog analogy, there's one shepherd.
Right.
And he's directing the dogs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And all the other dogs just work together.
Right.
And, you know, that's how we try to operate. Sometimes we bite each other, but so do dogs, you know. I mean, you put dogs in a kennel, one of them's going to get bit on for a few minutes, and they work it out. Right.
So let's talk about the different audiences. In your, let's just say Bar None. Let's say you have a new family that comes in, and they just decide, you know what, we're wrecking out unless we get involved in church. And so they show up and they don't have any understanding. They have a concept of God, but they don't know the person. So it's like, where do you start with that individual, and how do you approach a young person just brand new in the Lord like that?
Well, I mean, you start with them in a personal level. I mean, if me and you can't connect man to man,
right?
How am I going to connect you with God?
Right.
I mean, I can't if I'm not able to communicate and shake your hand, and you be like, "I'm glad I met that dude." Then that's to me, that's because I don't have enough. I mean, I'm just a personal kind of a guy. So, I mean, I preach, I share every Sunday. You know, like I said, the Lord. I mean, Ken Graves told me milk, meat, manna. I always hunt.
So you keep it basic enough so that if somebody is not ready to be chewing on meat, they're still going to get something.
I mean, you got to give them something. And this is the cool thing about how God uses me. I told him last night, you know, Paul wrote, he said, in your weakness, my grace is made perfect. Paul said, therefore I will boast all the more in my weakness, right?
Yep.
All right, so early on in me being a preacher, in fact, go back to the early 80s, before I messed up a lot, I thought I'd be a Christian. And I tried to read the Bible. I mean, literally. I would, every day at lunch, read the Bible. Every morning, read the Bible. For about 6-8 months. And Joe, every time I put the Bible down, I didn't understand nothing I'd just read. I got nothing. I couldn't remember nothing. I couldn't retain nothing. I can read today for 20 minutes. And if you ask me to recite to you what I read, it won't work. And so I was so frustrated. I put the Bible up and quit. I didn't look at it again for several years. I told the church last night, I said, what I know Paul meant was, if I boast all the more in my weakness, I thank God every time he shows me something out of his unfathomable word to a simple redneck that I can preach it and it comes out and people be like, oh my gosh, I got something out of that. That's me boasting in my weakness, because I'm telling y'all, I can't what do they call it whenever you take the Bible apart? You word by word.
Exegesis.
X or what? You know what I'm saying? I can't.
Yeah.
I admire people that can. Don't get me wrong. You can go Greek and Hebrew, and I could put the phone down and come back 30 minutes later. You talked the whole time about Greek and Hebrew and the original, and I'm like, okay, I can pick right up, because I would have never known what you meant. You know,
Right.
Now I'm learning, but I said all that to say, I won't never forget. I don't understand.
Right. Yeah.
And I depend on revelation, not education.
Yeah.
I need him to show me.
Yeah.
Show me. And then all I do is come back. Now, I told the church, I said, I do realize there have been times that I would get caught up thinking I've got to be a better teacher. I need to explain and make them understand. And I'm blessed with an honest wife, and she'd be like, why are you trying to preach like you don't preach? You preach by telling the story that God's get you through this week.
Right. That's the anointing.
That's your calling. That's how he's gifted you. You use that. I boast all the more in my weakness when I stay right there.
Right.
And in the simplicity of everyday.
And that's where it's effective.
Right. Because that's where my weakness is.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, had a preacher before I even started preaching told me, keep the cookies on the bottom shelf. And I'm like, what in the world does that mean? He said, every week you keep the cookies on the bottom shelf. That way the littlest kid can leave something sweet in his mouth. And so, I'm that kid.
Right.
I mean, I came to church with my wife a few times early on, and I'm like, I don't get nothing out of here. I don't understand nothing they're saying. I don't know why. What my biggest question was, well, why does that matter?
Right.
What does that do for me today? How does that help me be the man I'm supposed to be today, to hear how they were however many thousands of years ago?
Oh, yeah, I understand.
I couldn't make it communicate to life application.
Right.
So,
yeah. So that made it where people began to think, okay, I'm understanding now, because he's saying it in the way everyday life.
But Joe, that's the only way I get it. And so
he uses you. That's the gift that he has in your life, to use you that way.
Yeah. So it can be frustrating when you talk to somebody that quotes the scripture and says in 2 Samuel 17:26, the Lord, and I'm like, I have been reading it and praying and studying for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you where to find.
Well, I can say this. Because I'm kind of one of those. And to me, I'd give up all that just to have an experience with, the Father. It's almost like all that knowledge is like, it's like you have this concept of God and you learn all about him, and then you have the real person, him. And which one do you want?
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
I'm extremely thankful that I don't have any understanding or explanations in. I just know him.
That's the best thing there is.
Yeah. And so when I preach, here's what I was trying to build to. When I start to preach a sermon, every sermon starts out with milk. for me. I drink the milk
Yeah. Yeah.
every sermon, and so then I'm like, oh man, that's good. That's good. That's a refreshing.
Right.
Man, and then I keep chewing, I keep digging, I keep reading, I keep, asking you questions, and I ask Mr. Wiley or TW, or I'm like, what is, and our lay pastor elder group is 15 men, and I text them, what does this mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be an argument. There's it's not sensitive, touchy feely, the right answer, the wrong answer.
Right.
I mean, I've texted back, where in the crap are you at? That don't make no sense. And sometimes it's because I'm not seeing it yet. You know what I'm saying? But those guys all feed back. But man, how great is it that 15 of us are working?
And it encourages everybody to open up the scripture.
Yeah.
And look at
and discuss it.
Yeah.
Why did we get to where you can't call me out?
Yeah.
Because I'm the pastor.
Right.
I don't understand that.
That's good.
In fact, why as a pastor would I not? I need people to call me out.
Right.
Because the last person I want to call me out about misrepresenting the Word of God
Yeah, exactly.
is God.
Exactly.
I want all that done before we get to that level. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, shoot, Lord. But every message I get the milk, and then I marinate it, and I get some meat. And then I just thank God if manna shows up. I'm like, Lord, that's from heaven right there. That's
Yeah.
It's like peach cobbler at the end of a holiday. That's like, yeah.
And so what about, okay, so I understand on Sunday morning, and let's just say like Easter Sunday, you're getting people like
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of, so that message almost has to be,
Mostly milk.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity to give people a chance that they're never going to hear. They may not even come back till the next Sunday.
That's right. That's right.
So you have to include the gospel, the good news in that particular message.
I think, Joe, with every, all we're supposed to, I think all we're ever supposed to do is point people to Jesus. And so when you're addressing a crowd, if you're spiritually submissive, in your spirit, within 30 seconds or a minute of talking to a crowd, the spirit will start to bump you. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Kind of like getting you to where you know who you're talking to.
Yes, yeah. Okay. And a lot of times people think I'm rude on Sunday morning because I'm not visiting with people. I'm praying. I'm walking throughout the church, praying and asking God, who's here today?
Yeah, and what's the message?
Who's here today? How do I present what you need them to hear? Because you always, to me, you're always trying to achieve His goal, not yours. Don't get me wrong. I'm just a guy, and when 8 or 10 people, when you hit a good point, and 8 or 10 people go, "Oh, that's good stuff," or "Amen," that does feel good. I'd be lying to say it don't. But that's not what I'm after. I want to see that one guy that when church is over, he's either still sitting, or he's at that door. You know what I'm saying? Or he texts me after church and calls me a dirty word and says, "That hit me hard."
Wow. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then I'm like, "Yeah, Lord," because I know me. I'm not delivering a. I'm not. It ain't gonna be like
it's. But the thing that it is, it's bringing life, and that's what's important. It may not, be something that a theologian would have put together and bringing out real eloquently,
right.
And Paul argued against that. He did. He said, "I don't want to do that." He don't want to do that. He said, "I want to bring, I want to show you the demonstration of God's power," and that's pretty wild. That was an apostle who was packing.
You bet, yeah. And he went hard at it. He went with intention. With like, I'm gonna make you see. You're gonna, what I've seen. That to me is how. That's what I preach. I only share what I've received. And so, like, I'll start on Sunday evening sometime. Lord, you got to give me something because, it's coming.
What about people in closer in the inner circle who've been around for a while and you get with them? Is there a different mannerism that you take with them?
In fact, I shared this last night at church because it's Wednesday night, So there's you know,
A
maybe
little bit
100 people
more,
there.
a little bit more committed people
They're studying
they're
the
hungry.
word.
Yeah, okay, they're word people.
Studying.
Okay.
Yeah, they're wanting the word. They're wanting to understand. They're wanting to continue. And we was talking about David in his prayer in Psalms 13. And I said and I told them, I said I would never say this on Sunday morning because I would never want to offend
Okay.
a sensitive. But you guys are here on Wednesday night. You guys are digging. You guys are wanting to grow. When you're having this discussion with God, don't call him the man upstairs. You recognize him and put him in the proper position. He is God, my Father, who is in heaven.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with the guy. I don't have that issue with the guy praying.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
these are more mature people.
That's right. That's right.
And they need
right.
that kind of they need you to raise the level. Wait.
Yeah, and just it's just like a good horse or a good dog. You talk, you don't ask more out of that horse. You wreck out a good horse by demanding too much from him. You bring him along. You show him things, and then you back off. Let him soak it up. Let him. They say that that if you put too much on him, you blow him up. You can blow up a good horse because they want it. But you put too much in them, and they just you'll blow them up.
Wow.
So I think it's the same way with people. I mean, you don't want to blow nobody up. And how many people have been blown up because of how they thought they were supposed to be?
Yeah.
And the devil's great at blowing you up because he gets in your head.
You think you should be here, and you're not there.
Man, no.
And you feel like, okay, I'm doing something wrong, but you're not doing anything wrong.
No.
It's just a stage of growth that you got to go through. What about men who are like one-on-one with you, individuals that you're like, okay, I need to spend some time with this guy because I know that he's got a call on his life, and more than likely God's going to use him. And so I need to, plant seeds into his life and begin to cultivate that.
I'm those guys either stay solid and we have a bond, or they don't stay. And I've learned that they're not my friends. They're not in my life
To be friends.
No.
There's a purpose. There's a greater purpose.
Yep.
Okay.
And when they leave, whether it's to go where to God's called them, I need to celebrate the kingdom's advance.
Right.
Am I sad because they're not? Well, yeah, a little bit. I'm like, golly, man.
I poured into this person.
Yeah, when we were, when you work together and lean on each other and rely, confidently rely on each other, and then they've been moved to a new purpose, new calling. You got a void there that you got to regroup. It's just like anything else. You got a good company going. You got 3 or 4 key players.
You lose somebody,
Oh,
it hurts.
man,
It
you're
takes a while to fix that.
But if they've bettered themselves, you're proud for them.
Oh yeah, brag about them.
Yeah, you encourage them. Absolutely, I 100% support you. And then you go, dang it.
Yep.
But at the same time, if you tell me you want that relationship, don't expect me to be coddling you. And some of them leave because I'm not.
So do they ever approach you and say, hey, listen, I sure like to spend a little bit more intense time with you to kind of get cultivated, or I need help pursuing God?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And some of them do stay hooked up. Some of them really appreciate it, really dig it.
But it's a harder trail.
Yeah, ain't no
See,
milk.
this is the level. Yeah, I think this is the level. This is kind of what Jesus did. This. He showed us a pattern, and so he selected 12, and he basically trained them because he said, "I'm going to go, and I got to train some people to replace me." And I think we're all supposed to do that too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you talked about that last time about always having
always hunting your replacement.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Do you have certain individuals in your life that you think are essential to be vulnerable? Is that something important for a man of God, a pastor, to have people in their life that they know they can trust, that they can open up to and talk to, and there's not that.
You talking about for me to open up to?
Yes. People who are like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Like this core. It's almost Jesus had a core people he'd take privately with him.
Yeah, so he'd go from the 12, he'd get the 12, but then he'd go to the 3.
Right.
And it was only you notice it was only the 3 in Gethsemane that seen him sweat.
Oh yeah,
the drops of like blood.
Those 3 also were with him in the transfiguration.
That's right. And so only those 3 got to see that. I mean,
what I'm wondering is, do you see a value? And I'm talking about. I mean, we're kind of talking about pastoring and shepherding in the body and the nuts and bolts around it. Is it important that you develop a core group of individuals that you can? I think one of the terms that they use is accountability partners.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of bull crap.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
In my opinion, I don't like that accountability crap.
Yeah,
How can you can't hold me accountable? He does.
Yeah.
Now you can encourage me and you can call me out, but that's not really holding me accountable. I only answer to him. I mean,
yeah, right.
That to me, that's what accountability means. But yes, I definitely have
counsel.
I have men that I trust them with my guts.
Yeah.
And I trust them. And one of them's my brother, I mean, he's took care of me my whole life. And so he calls me and he'll be like, "What's going on, man? How are you? What are you thinking? What's going on?" One of them's Mr. Wiley, who has walked with me. Man, I mean, if Jesus needed them, who the heck are we if we don't need them?
So, so it is essential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are the qualifications that you would say? Okay, so let's say we have a person who's beginning to shepherd a church, brand new, and let's say that one of the recommendations is you need to have somebody that you can open up to and really, flesh and blood that you can talk to.
Right.
What would you say the kind of person that they need to be looking for or praying that God brings to their life?
Well, all right. So I believe, just like what Paul taught, we ought to all have a Paul. We ought to all have a Timothy. I mean, if you're called in any area, if you're called to serve as a lay pastor, if you're trying to get active in any area of church, you need to identify who your Paul is. Who's your Moses if you're Joshua, right? I mean, Joshua took over after Moses, right?
Yep.
How long did Joshua walk and help and assist Moses to be prepared for, right? So,
40 years.
Yeah. Well, back up even further, when did Moses start getting prepared to lead the Israelites out? It was, 3 40-year sections there, 40 years in Pharaoh's house, 40 years tending to the sheep in the backside of the wilderness. I mean, what was his father-in-law's name?
Jethro.
Jethro was teaching that sucker how to tend the sheep.
Yeah.
And he was answering to Jethro.
Yeah.
And if you remember, whenever he was leading the Israelites, it was Jethro that came to him and said, "What you're doing ain't good."
Right. Yeah.
So if you ain't got a Jethro, you don't need to be in the position of Moses.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should even assume it without that. I think it's a terrible, terrible train wreck waiting to happen.
So there's always going to be a Moses for you. Or
if there ain't, you better get one before you get in a position to need one.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense because, so you may be a Moses.
One day. Yeah. And I am for some people now.
For a lot of people. But you still have a Moses.
Absolutely.
And those who you're training, they will become that.
Yes.
So it's always going on.
Man, Joe, that's why Christianity still exists today. Because that's what Jesus did. That's what Simon Peter, John, James, that's what they did.
He said,
that's what Paul did.
He said, make disciples.
Yes. I mean, and so you got to be willing to be Joshua and get to be Moses. In fact, I think you got a desire to become Moses. You got a desire to be Jethro and want to
lead and
give
serve.
that guidance and give that discernment and give that wisdom and become that guy that's never noticed and not talked about, but he's encouraging and supporting and guiding. And I mean, I guarantee you, that's just that to me, that's a necessity. If I was helping, and when I've helped people start a church, or our church has been asked to be a sponsor and help them, I don't camp out on their money. I don't worry about their events. I want to know who is surrounding the core. Who is how strong is your bond, and how committed are you guys to the body, not to each other. You can't ever be. I can't ever be more committed to you than I am to the people God's entrusted me to oversee. Never. I can't. Be, and same way for our elder body. I can't care more for the elders personally than I am committed to the responsibility and position He's given us. Does that make sense? And they got to be the same way. You know, a lot of times you'll hear people, well, them elders need to be supportive of you, and man, no. No, they don't need to support you. They need to work with you.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't need to be against you.
Right.
But you got to
co-laborers.
You ain't right. We work side by side.
We all carry our share of the load.
And when I can't, you know, like right now, one of our elders, his mother just passed away, and we're like, man, you know, it's been a little bit of a healthy battle, and don't worry about nothing. Don't. And like here recently, the last 2 months, Kendall Grace, my youngest, last couple of years in school, has been playing volleyball, and I ain't went to the elder lay pastor meeting on Tuesday night because that's when she plays volleyball. And I'm like, if there's anything you need me for, y'all need to fill me in, because I'm going to go see her play volleyball and support her. This is the tail end of her high school years, and she don't need to be wondering if Dad cares. She needs to know he cares. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So them guys are like, absolutely, you go. You know, so you do help and carry one another's burdens, but you're not there to comfort each other and pat and pamper and you know, I mean.
So it's your responsibility yourself to maintain your relationship with God.
For me personally, yes. And it's your responsibility to call me out when I ain't. Not to make sure I am. You know what I'm saying? Right. But to go, where are you at, man?
Yeah. If you have people, if you have a core group that they're acquainted with you and they know you, they can see right through you. So there's things that you can't hide.
No, Joe Cox can call me and go, hey, man, I've noticed you kind of. He can notice when I text. He's called me and said, I've noticed in your text you seem pretty short. Are you good? Are you jammed up? Are you? And I'd tell him, no, I'm not all that good right now. I'm tired. We've had a lot of cattle at the sale or whatever, and I'm exhausted. And he will say, well, then I'll preach Wednesday night. He's not really asking permission.
Right.
He's saying,
let me take that.
I got that. You catch your breath. You know what I mean? And I trust him enough that when he tells me that, you know what I say? Good deal. You got it. I ain't even coming to church. I'm going to just go eat, or I'm just going to sit and not do nothing. And if you don't have that, man, this is what I think. If you don't have that, it's really that you're not doing enough that you need that. I mean, does that make sense?
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, if you're really doing it, you really require and rely on that kind of strength.
I got you. I say what you're hear what you're saying. You're saying if you're giving your all, you're going to be required. There's going to have to be somebody.
Listen, I couldn't do it without them guys. I couldn't. And I've been blessed. There's, like I said, they leave, but God's always
bringing in more.
Always. There's been, I think I counted up, maybe the last time we were talking, 5 guys have left our church and our pastors.
Wow, that's good.
And we've been a church 15 years.
Yeah.
So that's every 3 years.
In the religious system, they would say, "Oh, that's terrible."
Awesome. Man, that's
but they would think
Yeah.
would think that it's a they would think that, oh, that's a split or something.
No.
But no, it's not.
No, it's. And I've had people that, when we were slam full, and they were like, y'all need to go to 3 services. Y'all need to be. I'm like, no, we need to start another church. And then, why? Because the key to making money in the cattle industry is not overgrazing your cattle. and a place can only carry so many, and you want to give them, you want them to have the maximum opportunity to
That's interesting.
produce maximum,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I mean,
If there's not enough feed,
they're all going to do bad,
wow. Yeah.
and I mean, it's common sense. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I never thought about that.
it's the
That's good.
same thing. If you overgraze, if you're overstocked, everything suffers.
So these
Everything.
mega churches might be not really putting out quality.
Well, and it's not so much quality to me. I mean, it's more of maximizing the individual within their church function, opportunities and abilities. I mean, our greatest purpose as a church is not to have people come; it's to have them go.
Train them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, church ought to be just a place you come to fill your gut, get a fresh drink of water, and hit the trail come Monday morning or Sunday evening. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
That's good.
I did a little old sermon one time. We don't never need to become a feedlot. We need to always be resting pens and holdover pens. That's where if you're calling cattle from Florida to say California, you're going to stop somewhere in Texas and unload. And you're going to let them cattle lay over. That's what that's called, layover. The guy gets a nap. The cattle get off. They get hay. They get water. They lull. They lay down. Right? Then you load them back up, and you go. And feed yard, you know what a feed yard is? That's their final destination. They show up, and they stay right there, and they get fat, and they get killed. That's the end of their deal. We should never, as a church, be a feedlot. We should be a resting place. We should be a place people where they show up on Sunday morning and they need a good fresh drink of water. They lay over, load their butts up, and get out. Sometimes that means going down the road to another place, and sometimes that means go to work on Monday morning and be able to put up with your crazy boss, or go back at marriage another week. Keep trying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Keep raising teenagers one more week without killing nobody.
Right.
Get your drink, get your fresh bale of hay, and go on. You know. But churches, I think, can have a tendency of wanting it to be more like a feed yard. Everybody just stay here, be full, be big, be fat.
Yeah. That's not good.
It's not what I think we're supposed to be doing. But
One of the things that's negative about that is you lose your purpose because you're being fed. You don't need to. Why do I need to stay up tonight and read?
Right.
Why do I need to pray?
Why does he still wake me up at 2 a.m? I've been doing this 15 years. I mean, why can I still not? I can fall asleep like that, but I'm up. I bet 5 days a week at 2 or 3 a.m.
It's an appointment.
Yeah, and it's not because that he's got to get me right. Because I mean, yeah, he does have to get me right. Don't get me wrong, but it's. Am I still working?
Yeah, it's like
Are you still willing?
It's almost a check-in time. Okay, this is our time. I'm checking in with you. This time.
And what are you ready for? What are you willing? You know, what are you? Because you never know. I mean, in my life, every day I interact with somebody that. I mean, I've preached a guy's funeral when I talked to him for 3 days, and 2 days later he shot himself in the head. And you're like, man, how did I miss that? I preached a guy's funeral not long ago. I seen him get a 12-pack of beer out of the gas station, and did his funeral a week later because he killed himself. And I'm like, how did I not? And I know God put me right there at that time. I mean, I know that. And so I wake up going, how did I miss that? I don't wake up trying to figure out what to preach. I wake up trying to figure out.
Yeah. That's very valuable because you have a good concept of the person of God, not. And the difference between having a concept of God and knowing the person of God is the difference between like being a part of religion and having a life-changing experience with God.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're experiencing at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
The person of God is like, let's talk.
You know what's crazy, Joe? A lot of times he just wants to know if I'll get up.
That's good.
I'm like, I'll get up.
Yeah.
Make the pot of coffee. I sit down and I'll open up my Bible, or I'll listen to put on a sermon in my ear. And take a deep breath, and I'll be like, I don't have a funeral message to preach. It's Thursday. It ain't Tuesday. It ain't Wednesday. Why am I up? Lord, what are we doing? What do we need? And I even I background a lot of cattle, and so I will look at my information and I'll be talking to God. God, these cattle are doing pretty good. We've had real good luck. I don't know what I'm not doing right, or you know what I'm saying. I mean, that whatever time I wake up, that he's asked me to get up is it's whatever I'm doing. It's me and him doing it. And a lot of people don't.
That's good.
Don't realize that he wants to help me manage my cattle and make decisions on that deal too. And on
It's almost like it's almost like you're managing his cattle. I mean,
well, I am, because it ain't nothing mine. I blew all my deal up. My deal shot. So
he's like, okay, we're
doing this together.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants to do. Ain't that what he wants to do with all of us? He wants to do the things, whether it's fishing, background, and cattle.
Yeah.
He wants to do it with his children.
That's
why
really
ain't that why he created us? Ain't that what he did with Adam and Eve? He's like, you know what? I want to share this with
Fellowship. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's good. It's really good.
I just think, man, I just think church is great, and it is an institution that Jesus Christ established. So it's worth doing.
Absolutely.
But you don't do church for Jesus. You have Jesus, so you do church.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you can do church in the parking lot. You can do, that's why you can do church anywhere. That's why you can do church anywhere. It don't have to be somewhere.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Well, this is good. This is really the information that I wanted to talk about. And we're going to do some more, because I want to go into, next time we get together, I want to go into the way that God has set the body and the members in the body, and how he fitted them together, and why they're fit together like that. But we'll say that for next time.
Okay. Because that's a jacked up
I
deal.
know it. I know. All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Bye.